2 years. Awaiting fisting gadgetgasm. Thank you, sir. Thank you both. For 2 years each. Violet Vagabond knows as long as the Forsen. Here's a reminder to clear out your old leftovers.
A student ate 5-day-old pasta for lunch. This is how his liver shut down. AJ is a 20-year-old man presenting to the emergency room with abdominal pain, nausea, and diffuse bleeding. Paramedics were scrambling because he kept vomiting in the ambulance until he fell unconscious. AJ was a struggling college student. Like most other people born in his time, he was looking forward to crushing student loan debt that would wipe away his entire adult life. The most affordable food for him was cheap pasta, cooked with pre-made sauce. AJ would make all his food for the week on Sunday. He'd refrigerate it into containers, and this way he could ration it by day, but sometimes he'd accidentally leave his food out overnight, and then eat it the following morning. His friends loved to joke that one day, AJ would probably die of food poisoning. Except this time, it wasn't really a joke. Earlier in the week, AJ accidentally left his pasta out for 2 days. He typically would have thrown that away, but...
Like, I get when you do this, like, if you are working out, if you work out and lift heavy weights and shit, I understand why you do this, because you need to cook a lot of broccoli, a lot of chicken, a lot of, pasta or rice or whatever the fuck you want to eat it with, potatoes, right? I understand meal prep. It makes a lot of sense because you cannot just make a little bit of chicken, a little bit of broccoli, a little bit of pasta every meal. It takes too much fucking time and effort. But when you only eat pasta with some shitty pre-made sauce, then you can fucking cook that every single fucking day new. Like, it's not a lot of effort. It takes fucking 10 minutes to cook pasta. Like, you can do it, and you don't even have to be there. You can you can do your studying or whatever. You don't even have to be in the fucking kitchen while it's cooking.
His roommate didn't know.
There's no
He
reason
thought it
to
may have
do
just
this with
been out
pasta.
for a few hours, so he
It
put
just
it
tastes
back
shit.
into the fridge. As
You cannot
AJ
heat up
reheated the
pasta
now 5-day-old
make it
pasta
taste
that
as
was
good
left
as when
out
you
for
fucking
2
freshly
days.
make it.
He thought it smelled kind of strange, but he used a different brand of sauce this time, so he didn't think too much of it. Immediately after finishing the entire plate of pasta, AJ's stomach started to hurt. He was bloating. He could feel gas build up in his stomach, and the flatulence was so embarrassing he had to go outside to air out his pants. A stinging pierced through his cheeks, and he could feel his eyes push out of his skull as he suddenly vomited in a way like never before. That pasta must have been no good, he thought. But it's probably just a little food poisoning, he thought. Back in his dorm room now, AJ, in a world of hurt, joked to his roommate Bradley that more than just pasta had exited his body from both ends. Hoping that he'd feel better, he went to bed, but before that, he made sure to drink an entire bottle of stomach medicine in the hopes that it would do something for the nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. But it wasn't enough.
What the fuck?
3 a.m. AJ, laying in a pool of cold sweat.
A whole bottle of what?
He made sure to drink an entire
Stomach
bottle of
medicine? Who has that lying around? Who has stomach medicine lying around, first of all? And second of all, a whole bottle?
Medicine in the hopes that it would do something for the nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. But it wasn't enough. 3 a.m. AJ,
Pepto-Bismol?
laying in a pool of cold sweat, runs to
I've
the bathroom
never
to
had
huddle over the
stomach
sink for a couple
medicine.
more hours. As his roommate goes into the bathroom, he sees AJ passed out on the floor, his skin and the whites of his eyes a sickly greenish yellow. AJ gets up and weakly stumbles around before falling down again. Bradley calls for 911 and AJ's brought to the emergency room where we are now. Given this history of present illness, it's clear that AJ is suffering from some kind of food poisoning that's causing liver failure, but to the medical team, that's not immediately obvious. AJ is an otherwise healthy 20-year-old man who wasn't taking any medicines. Given that he's coming from a college dorm and that he's vomiting and then became unconscious, then that kind of sounds like an alcohol poisoning case. The yellowing of his skin and eyes is called jaundice.
Honestly,
and it comes from a chemical.
it's such a scary situation when you feel really fucking sick, right? And you live in America or whatever, and you don't want to call 911 because it's gonna be an insane fucking hospital bill. Because maybe it's just like something that will pass by itself, and then you're sitting in this fucking huge dilemma.
Called bilirubin, something
Fucking
that makes
Christ.
poop brown and is produced from breaking down red blood cells in the liver. If bilirubin is floating around in the blood, making the skin yellow, then it means that the liver is probably damaged, which brings us back to the suspicion of alcohol poisoning, as that can damage the liver. Similarly, another cause of liver damage and unconsciousness in a healthy college-age person could be a drug overdose, of which even the roommate may not be aware of, except a blood test finds no evidence of alcohol or drug use. Instead, it's found that AJ has hypoglycemia. Hypo, meaning low. Glyce from ancient Greek glikis, meaning sweet, referring to sugar, and emia, meaning presence in blood. Low sugar presence in blood. AJ ate his last meal of spoiled pasta about 16 hours ago. Blood sugar levels spike after eating and level off about 4 hours after, wherein the human body continuously works to maintain normoglycemia. But for AJ, that mechanism isn't functioning, meaning something that's supposed to be releasing that sugar isn't releasing it. Hypoglycemia by itself is a relatively non-specific problem, and it means that you could have several different problems that could be causing it. But given that the liver is the most immediate source of stored sugar, then this developing hypoglycemia could give us a biochemical basis for explaining his fulminant liver failure.
I don't know what the point will be.
The liver is a highly metabolic organ. You can't live for very long without one.
Point is, don't
Everything
eat
that
old
enters
food.
your mouth ends up in the liver as it breaks
And
down
don't have
chemicals and red
chronic
blood
diseases.
cells, secretes bile for
Probably.
digestion, makes blood clotting factors that stop you from bleeding, and processes proteins, among other functions. And it maintains blood sugar levels, bringing us back to metabolism. Sugar, or glucose, is the cell's primary source of energy, and the liver, to perform all of these functions, commands a high demand of cellular energy. Given that glucose is no longer being released from the liver into the blood, then it indicates that there's likely a metabolic problem developing inside AJ's liver. And because fatty acids are oxidized into glucose,
Is this guy
which
a
then
doctor?
results into ATP
I'm assuming he's a
production,
doctor.
ATP being the major energy molecule of cells, then it
Yeah.
means that there's likely
It's funny how, you know,
deposits
like,
growing
oh, I'm gonna
inside,
become a
stopping
doctor.
all
And then they become a
essential
doctor and
liver
they're like,
functions.
oh
We
shit,
can assume
YouTubers
here
earn this
that
much
AJ's
more.
food poisoning from rotten
I'm
pasta
gonna become
is
a
likely
YouTuber.
from some kind of bacterial or maybe fungal source, but something's wrong. Typically, food poisoning just causes stomach inflammation, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. It doesn't typically cause acute liver failure, and even worse, we can't find out which bacteria is causing the problem because culturing it would take days. Days that AJ doesn't have because his liver is quickly shutting down. His response to broad-spectrum antibiotics is limited. Additional blood tests find multiple liver enzymes floating around in his blood at a level 500 times the upper limit of normal, meaning parts of his liver have started to die and are now circulating all throughout his body. His kidneys are starting to fail because analysis of his urine finds blood in it. In liver failure, especially with the presence of bacteria, the body signals to the immune system that something is wrong. White blood cells and inflammatory markers rush to the site and vasodilate the splanchnic arteries. From ancient Greek, splanchnikos, meaning entrails. Because about 30% of systemic blood is in the splanchnic circulation, this volume expansion decreases the effective blood volume. The heart detects this, thinking that the body's lost a lot of blood, and it secretes hormones to tell the body to hold on to water and sodium and to constrict all other blood vessels, including the ones going into the kidneys, preventing blood flow into them, causing acute renal injury, in conjunction to falling brain, ending in death. All because AJ unknowingly ate pasta that was left out unrefrigerated for 2 days. The final link in this case comes not from the pasta, but that stomach medicine that AJ drank after initially vomiting. Bismuth subsalicylate is a salicylate, or more colloquially known as aspirin. Aspirin overdoses, just like in Rye syndrome, also result in liver failure because aspirin uncouples the electron transfer chain.
Okay, don't send me any more links. I'm not going to click them. The fuck? Jesus Christ. Seriously. anyone else links, I feel bad then. Permanent.
Glucose into ATP, causing backup of glucose and the pooling of fats in liver tissue. So adding this medicine overdose to cereulide poisoning resulted in a dual blockade of ATP synthesis and leading to acute liver failure. It's important to note that this is not a typical food poisoning case. Many people eat pasta or any other kind of noodle that is left over for a day or two and they're fine. But tragic cases such as this one have been reported in literature, and the fulminant hepatic failure is sudden, with a patient expiration happening within hours after presenting to the emergency room. Some particularly tragic published cases are from families who go out on a picnic with their children, only to have multiple small kids under 10 years of age suffer from sudden liver failure due to spoiled pasta, and the end of those stories are the same as in AJ's case. Be careful of food left out for more than a few hours if the food...
Yeah, not a few hours. Less, if it's anything protein related at all. Way less.